For this week's tutorial, I'll be giving an overview of the 7 ecological principles and relating them to a case study of flooding in the Hawkesbury-Nepean. These principles were conceived by the Stockholm Resilience Centre in the face of environmental uncertainty to highlight how achieving resilience can improve sustainability. The first ecological principle is to maintain diversity and redundancy. It's all about having options. This includes biodiversity, diversity in the resources that are exploited, in who uses them, and in who advises on them. Next, we have managing connectivity of habitats, species, and people. This one is a delicate balance. Too much can spread disturbances between areas, but too little can make recovery post-disturbance harder. The third principle is managing the slow variables and feedbacks of ecological regimes. Dampening minor disturbances through negative feedback systems can help prevent them evolving into major ones. We must also foster complex adaptive systems thinking. Social ecological systems are difficult to predict and involve complex interactions that we must acknowledge and understand to promote sustainability. On to the final 3 principles, we must first encourage learning. Because ecological systems are complex and ever-changing, there will always be room to learn so that we can better understand how to maintain them. Ecological systems affect many stakeholders, and thus broadening participation is vital. This diversifies views, decentralizes power, and builds trust and responsibility in the management of natural resources. Finally, the last of the principles is to promote polycentric governance. This should involve nested institutions that transfer knowledge between levels for better decision-making and collective action on ecological issues. Moving on to a case study to contextualize one of these principles. The Hawkesbury-Nepean river system that straddles Sydney is a highly important natural resource that is regulated through the Warragamba Dam. This dam was built in 1960 and is responsible for providing around 80% of Greater Sydney's potable water supply. In the past decade, there has been significant housing development along the floodplains of this river system. Simultaneously, due to climate change, there has been an increase in severe rain events, which has led more people and infrastructure vulnerable to the effects of flooding. Various proposals to raise the walls of the Warragamba Dam to increase its capacity have been proposed, but this is not a resilient approach. This is because attempting to control the ecological processes that affect river basins like floods and droughts is futile. The more resilient approach is to recognize them and focus our efforts on monitoring, interventions, and proactive planning. Since residents of northwestern Sydney tend to have low awareness of flood risks, it is clear that the environmental principle of encouraging learning is paramount to managing this problem. If the general public becomes more aware of climate change, severe weather events, and floodplains, then maybe people will become empowered to form grassroots organisations that demand more from the government and urban developers. Hopefully, this would lead to further learning through greater resource allocation into climate research, thus demonstrating the importance of incorporating environmental principles into natural resource management.